If you are building out a cabinet or you are upgrading the hinges on your existing cabinet, it's good to know how to install a cabinet door hinge, and that's what this is. This hinge was provided by Vence to demonstrate how to install a hinge. This specific hinge is a 1/2 inch overlay, 3-way adjustable hinge. 1/2 inch overlay, that part's important. What that means is the cabinet door is gonna overlay the style or the side of the cabinet by 1/2 inch. And I've drawn this gray line to show that 1/2 inch mark, how that's gonna overlay. So that's important to know, especially if you're going on an existing cabinet or you're measuring cabinet doors to make for a new cabinet that you're building. So that's that 1/2 inch overlay. With this one, I'm not gonna use any jigs. There's several jigs on the market that you could buy. I'm gonna use the instructions provided by the cabinet manufacturer, by the hinge manufacturer. And this tells you what you need to know. It tells you it's a 35 millimeter bore to a 1.5 or 11.5 millimeter depth. The side screws are 45 millimeters apart, and we are 20.5 millimeters from the edge of the cabinet for the side screws, 3 millimeters in for the cup of the hinge. If you're using a jig, those measurements can help you set the jig up for the cabinet door or for the hinge install, but we're just gonna use this jig provided. And so what we'll do is we're just gonna lay this jig or this piece of paper, this guide paper, on the cabinet door itself. And I've got this automatic center punch that I'm gonna use to punch the center. It's drawn on here, and that's where I'm gonna drill for my the cup of the hinge. We're gonna go ahead and punch the center, and that's gonna give me a center mark for my Forstner bit. And I'm gonna use this 35 millimeter Forstner bit. If this is your first time doing something like this, again, there is nothing wrong with sneaking up on your depth, just to make sure you get it just right. All right, we are just about perfect there. All right, so I like that depth. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reset my jig, or my paper. I probably should have just marked these up front. Because we want these two holes to be perpendicular or inline, equidistant from the edge of the paper, or from the edge of the cabinet itself, I'm sorry. And as we get that lined up, I'm gonna use my center punch again to mark the center of those holes. Jigs are great for this because what a jig will do is it lets you perfectly line all 3 of these holes up so you're not guessing and checking. And instead of drilling these screws, because I didn't have a drill bit that is small enough for pre-drilling for these, I'm just going to hand drive these screws. All right. Now, if you were installing this on a cabinet, the next step would be to, obviously you're gonna set more than one hinge, but would be to set this on the stile itself. Again, this cabinet's gonna overhang the face of the stile by that 1/2 inch. And so you'll align your door as best you can, top and bottom in the opening. Again, I'm just doing this on a sample piece, so it's not a precise science. You can use a center punch or a self-centering drill bit like a Vence bit to know exactly where you want to set both of those screws. Again, I'm going to hand drive these instead of using a drill, but you could easily use a drill if you wanted to. And now when this closes, it's going to overhang the stile of the cabinet by that 1/2 inch that we had drawn in.